Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 137, July the 20th, 2017, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, I'm sure you all have heard the news by now. The AP is reporting today that Senator John McCain, Senator McGoo, has a brain tumor and it is cancerous. So he has a cancerous brain tumor. That's what is being reported. Now, the timing is just extraordinary here, wouldn't you say? Just as John McCain's lawyers find out that Christopher Steele and his attorneys are pointing the finger at John McCain and his right-hand man, Mr. Kramer, as being possibly the ones who leaked the dossier to BuzzFeed and possibly to other media organizations, John McCain comes down with a cancerous brain tumor. Just as John McCain's attorneys find out that he is going to be questioned about his activities regarding the dossier, he comes down with brain cancer. Now, am I suggesting that John McCain may be faking this or putting this out as a fake story to throw the bloodhounds off of his trail? Is he that kind of is he despicable enough to do that? You're damn skippy, he is. And I'm not talking about peanut butter. Absolutely. Now, do I think that that's what's going on? No, I believe I would think he probably does have a brain tumor. It would certainly make sense based on his recent blood clot behind his eye and that type of thing. So it's probably true. He probably does have a brain tumor, a cancerous brain tumor, which gives me great empathy for the tumor that's being forced to live inside John McCain's head. Now, I know what you're thinking. Man, that's hardcore, brother. Have you no empathy whatsoever? Well, yes, I have empathy. I have empathy for the 134 sailors who were killed as a result on the aircraft carrier as a result of John McCain's hot dogging, along with the hundreds and hundreds of other guys who were injured in that event. I have empathy for those Japanese villagers who John McCain napalmed for 23 days before they fired a missile at him and shot him down. I have empathy for the millions of dead Iraqis and hundreds of thousands who've had their lives destroyed as a result of John McCain's participation and cooking up the fake intelligence to get the war going and supporting it and even continuing to this day to support it. I have a great deal of empathy for those hundreds of thousands of people in Libya and the millions whose lives have been destroyed as a result of John McCain's support, overwhelming support, enthusiastic support, along with Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton's war in Libya. And of course, if John McCain had his way, we would have had a war with Iran, which would have resulted in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of more deaths. He would want to play a game of nuclear chicken with Vladimir Putin over Syria and in a fly zone, a no-fly zone. John McCain, of course, supported everything in Syria, Iraq, you name it, any opportunity to bomb and kill and murder and destroy. John McCain will be right there. He'll have your back. This man has been responsible for so much death, destruction, murder, misery, pain, suffering, that I just cannot find a lick of empathy in my heart for this man whatsoever. And I believe if there is an afterlife, if there is a hell, his soul will burn for eternity. He spent most of his life on this planet being a complete asshole and being a man who's propagated more death and destruction, pain, misery, and suffering than just about anyone I can imagine. Any American, certainly. He's a very nasty man. That's why his nickname in Annapolis was McNasty. So the AP is reporting John McCain has a cancerous brain tumor. Again, I have empathy for the tumor living inside his head. So what should happen at this point? Well, I'll tell you what should happen. As a result of this breaking news, the magistrate in the UK should immediately send an officer of the court to John McCain's bedside, along with the two attorneys and their staffs, any officers of the court who need to be there, the bailiff, whoever. They need to swear him in, put him under oath, and get his testimony now, while they still can. His testimony is key to unlocking the truth about who leaked the dossier and why. John McCain knows all about that, and we need to get to the bottom of it, don't we? So that's my recommendation. Next, from Reason magazine, one of my favorite websites. I love Reason. Now, as you know, I've been kind of hard on Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and it's because he deserves it. I think he should step down, or he should be fired. And reading a story on Reason, and they are reporting that Sessions will now empower the Justice Department to issue new directions to increase the federal government's use of civil asset forfeiture, a practice that allows law enforcement to seize property from suspected criminals without charging them with a crime, especially for drug traffickers. Well, now we know what Jeff Sessions has been doing, besides crossword puzzles and polishing his raisins. So it appears now that that's what he's been working on, stepping up the civil asset forfeiture. Now, there's been a lot of laws, bad laws passed by this government, and many laws that have been abused to the max. Probably no law has been more abused than the Federal Forfeitures Act. It's been opposed by two of the leading, Scalia was opposed to it. Several other Supreme Court justices were opposed to it. Many conservatives opposed to it. Of course, all libertarians, even many liberals opposed to it. Even some in law enforcement opposed to it. This law has been massively abused, and it never actually gets the people who should be targeted. If you are going to target, people for asset forfeiture and things like that, they should first have to be convicted of a crime. But the way the law currently reads, and Attorney General wants to strengthen it, is you don't even actually have to be found guilty of the crime. You only have to be accused, and they can take your property. They can take everything. It's absolutely amazing that he would support something like this, but now he wants to go even farther. He wants to put the pedal to the metal. So that's what Jeff Sessions has been working on while the deep state coup goes on, while real serious crimes go on all around him. Jeff Sessions is interested in more civil asset forfeiture. Now, there have been many studies done, and it's been found that these asset forfeiture situations result in almost always average, ordinary people suffering the consequences of this law. They never, ever really get the big-time drug cartels and those types of people, which you would think that's what it would be intended for, and that's the way they frame it. But it ends up always being just a little guy that ends up getting crushed. And of course, you cannot defend yourself legally if you're a little guy in these asset confiscations and things like that. There's just no way. You lose everything. Now, it's kind of funny because James Comey was one of the lead attorneys representing HSBC, the European International Bank, mega bank, which was found guilty of laundering hundreds of billions of dollars of major drug cartel money. James Comey was one of their leading defense attorneys. It was James Comey who helped broker a plea bargain deal with them so that they paid some fines. Nobody from HSBC went to jail. Nobody lost their trader's license. And in fact, the fines that they ended up paying paled in comparison to the profits they made laundering the hundreds of billions of dollars in drug money. And it's very funny that the FBI director, who was the FBI director when Attorney General Sessions was sworn in, and Attorney General Sessions knows all about the case of HSBC, about how James Comey helped get these people off the hook. It didn't seem to bother Jeff Sessions, bother his conscience any, that his own FBI director was the lead attorney to negotiate this plea bargain for the criminals at HSBC. All the while, Jeff Sessions wants to go after the penny ante drug dealer on the street. He's probably just trying to survive in the age of global slavery. You know, it's funny, Jeff, that you would pursue this route to go after these junkies. So I have a question for you, Jeff. Since you're going to go after the pot junkies, maybe the crack junkies, maybe the codeine junkies or heroin junkies, how about the alcohol junkies, Jeff? How about the gambling junkies? How about the sex junkies? How about the money junkies? You see, Jeff, there's many different types of junkies, but the only ones that you seem to be interested in are the folks that like to smoke a little weed. Maybe that's because the money junkies, the booze junkies, the gambling junkies, the sex junkies, the money junkies, all those people were all your friends, and most of the members of Congress, and probably a lot of the people who bankroll your campaign. They're probably knocking back a couple double shots of bourbon now as they work on their next scam or their next crime, before they watch a snuff video from some sex slave who was taken in North Africa somewhere. These are the people you run around with, Jeff. These are the types of things that they do. You're all about those pot junkies, but we'll never hear you do a thing or see you do a thing about the money junkies, the booze junkies, the sex junkies, the gambling junkies, or any of the other junkies. It's just those potheads. Now, we have more info from the Christopher Steele, from his lawyers, who are now, this case in the UK is moving forward. I mean, the deposition was like a month and a half ago, so now they're not making so much arguments, but there are discussions and things going on. And so we have learned that Christopher Steele's lawyers have told the court that Steele only shared the dossier with his business partner, a man named Christopher Burrows, an unnamed UK security official, Fusion GPS, and David Kramer. This is why they're making the argument that they believe it's likely that John McCain or David Kramer, working for John McCain, are the ones who were responsible for leaking this to BuzzFeed and some other media publications. They believe that he is the most likely person to have done so. And so they're actually telling you exactly who would have had a copy of the dossier. And there it is. Christopher Steele's partner, Christopher Burrows, an unnamed UK security official, Fusion GPS, and David Kramer. That could sure give you a bad case of cancer, I guess. I don't know. Now, also, the attorney for Christopher Steele is saying that dossier was given to Mr. Kramer, really given to McCain, given to Mr. Kramer on behalf of Mr. McCain, with the understanding that John McCain would treat the dossier with the strictest of confidence, and that the dossier would only be used by McCain in his official capacity for the sole purpose of analyzing, investigating, and verifying the contents of the memorandum. So this is the argument that Christopher Steele's lawyers are trying to make to save his skin. And I'm not suggesting that Mr. Steele's telling the truth or that he's totally clean. He's dirty as the day is long. No question about that. But clearly they're looking for a scapegoat. And maybe John McCain is going to be the guy they use as a scapegoat. Or maybe he legitimately is the person who's responsible. They certainly want to ask him some questions. He's not dead yet. They need to find out where his hotel is or his hospital is and what room he's in. They need to get somebody up there, place him under oath, an officer of the court. They need to get his statement right now while they still can. He may have a fast-acting brain cancer. He could be a vegetable in 2 weeks. They better get there and get that done. But clearly what we're learning from Christopher Steele's attorneys, they're saying, hey, look, you know, my client, Christopher Steele's attorney is saying, look, my client is stating he did not leak the dossier to BuzzFeed or any of the other publications. He does admit to verbally briefing several news organizations on some talking points or contents of the dossier, but did not leak the overall dossier and the entire thing and some of the things he's being sued for, which is leaking Mr. Gubarov's name. That's not something that Christopher Steele, because that's what he's defending himself against, is the case brought against him by Gubarev. That Gubarev's name was dropped, that his company's names were dropped as being participants in the hacking. And so Mr. Steele is trying to make the argument that Mr. Gubarev should have no fault with him because he did not drop Mr. Gubarev's name or the names of his companies, nor did he instruct anyone to do so. He is suggesting that there's only a few people that could have done that, and one would be his partner, which I guess he feels pretty comfortable that his partner would not do that. I guess he feels pretty comfortable with his discussions with the people he was working for at Fusion GPS, that maybe they're telling him they didn't do it. I don't know. But he's making a very small list, and they are pointing the finger at John McCain. They need to get over there and interview John McCain while they can. Yes, while they can. Now, yesterday, I mentioned to you that there was going to be a gentleman testifying, a UK businessman named Bill Browder, who is the CEO of a company over in the UK. And I mentioned to you that he would be testifying in court and basically what he was going to say. Now, I wasn't totally clear on exactly how he plays into this whole thing or why it's so important, so I spent a couple hours doing research on this last night, and I found out quite a bit more about Mr. Browder and also how he plays into this with this Russian lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, and the Russian government, and McCain's organization, which he claims he distances himself from and says he has no association with his own McCain organization. But anyway, this is a very complex, it goes into a very, very complex web of people and connections, which I'll spare you, but I'll get just the nuts and bolts of what is going on and why Mr. Browder wants to testify and why they would like to hear his testimony. And also, I should mention, if you haven't already heard, that this Russian lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, has now stated she would like to testify. And the reason that she wants to testify is because she wants to counter what Mr. Browder says. So it's looking more and more like there's definitely a little bit of a war going on here between Natalia Veselnitskaya and Bill Browder. Now, Bill, of course, and a lot of this has to do, remember, with this Majinsky Act. Remember, when Trump Jr. got together, he was expecting to get dirt on Hillary, but instead, Veselnitskaya only wanted to talk about this Majinsky Act. So, who is Majinsky and what is this all about? Well, according to Mr. Browder, Majinsky was his lawyer, and Majinsky was investigating for his client, Mr. Browder, a $230 million money laundering scheme that was perpetrated against Mr. Browder's company. Mr. Browder is claiming that Mr. Majinsky was tortured and murdered in a Russian prison in 2009 after being jailed for his investigation of this money laundering scheme, which apparently involves some high-level Russian officials, possibly even people associated with the Russian government. This is why a lot of people think that Veselnitskaya is somehow connected to the Russian government, because whether she's intentionally acting in the interest of the Russian government or not, by fighting Mr. Browder, she is essentially fighting on behalf of the Russian government. So this is apparently what's going on here. We have this little battle, this little civil war going on between this Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian lawyer who met with Trump Jr., and Mr. Browder, this UK businessman. So now both of them want to appear before the U.S. Congress, before these committees, and they want to tell their side of the story. Obviously, Veselnitskaya has been lobbying, working along with GPS, and has lobbied over 200 members of Congress to try to get them to overturn this Magnitsky Act. See, what happened was after Mr. Browder made these claims that the Russian government killed his lawyer, Mr. Magnitsky, because he was investigating this, money laundering or scheme or whatever, and his lawyer was then put in a Russian prison and murdered and killed or tortured or what have you. This caused some American politicians to say, hey, look what the Russian government's doing. They murdered this lawyer. He's investigating this crime, and they torture him and murder him. This was all based on Mr. Browder's word. And this did great damage to Natalia Veselnitskaya's client. Now, he's a private individual, but I guess he has an interest here, and it's also an interest of the Russian government. So, this apparently is what is going on between these two, and Veselnitskaya is claiming that Browder has committed financial fraud in the case and has crafted a legend surrounding Mr. Magnitsky to cover up that crime. So this is kind of what's going on between these two, and this is why Mr. Browder is testifying. This is why this attorney Veselnitskaya wants to testify. So it's basically a pissing contest between these two, and probably has nothing to do with Russian collusion. Nothing will be learned. It's just more hot air and another waste of time. They should handle this in a civil court somewhere in Russia or the UK or somewhere. It doesn't even belong in our scope. It's not, has nothing to do with what we're interested in. And but it'll probably happen. Now, one last thing. Trump has told the New York Times that if he knew Sessions would recuse himself, that he never would have made him Attorney General. So I'm kind of thinking maybe President Trump is watching my videos. I do think that he should fire Attorney General Sessions. I actually think Sessions should step down on his own. But if he doesn't, I would fire him. But it is funny that I would hear this Trump saying this to the New York Times. It's obvious that Trump is not happy with Sessions. This is obvious point to be seen. So anyway, gonna have to cut the video a little bit short tonight. My battery is blinking. It's running low, so I'm about to run out of battery. So anyway, that's basically what's going on today. I've got an incredible video for you tomorrow. Lots of information I've been working on that has to do with the the wiretapping scandal and the dossier and the whole 9 yards tied together. Putting that all together, I'll be doing that tomorrow. That might be a pretty long video, 45 minute to an hour long video. So got to cut this one a little bit short, but that's what's going on for today in TowerGate Day 137, July the 20th. John McCain has brain cancer. How convenient. And basically Jeff Sessions is an asshole. So thank you for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow with a real exciting video. I think it may be one of my best videos ever. It's going to be a gripper. Alrighty, you guys. You have a good day, a good evening, and I'll see you for Friday's TowerGate. It's going to be awesome. We'll see you back then. Thanks. Bye.